on the collapse of FTX as well as its charity work. Sean Stein Smith is joining us via Skype. He's an assistant professor at Lehman College at the City University of New York, and welcome to the show. Sean, why don't you start there, this connection between FTX and philanthropy. Kind of tease it out for us, if you will.
Yep. And so ultimately trying to get a handle on the ultimate impact of the collapse of FTX on its charitable arms is actually being complicated, right? Because as has been pointed out during the bankruptcy filing and the ongoing actual court hearings, there aren't really any good internal records at FTX, and it turns out that there weren't any good internal controls, and that really sort of the whole operation, it was almost run on sort of the whims of its founder, SBF. And so ultimately the impact of it is going to be teased out over the next couple of years, but there are estimates, and there is a underlying theme here that the process by which these actual charitable contributions were made, it was done not on a consistent basis. There was no framework, and so it's going to be awfully tough to have an accurate handle on the actual dollar figure for now, but I would estimate it's going to be again, multi-billion-dollar impact in terms of its total charitable contributions.
Interesting. We've seen clawbacks in action before. Bernie Madoff had the Ponzi scheme where nonprofits took it on the chin. Trustees went after millions from some of these big-name charities. A number of them did return money, but at least one was able to negotiate a smaller clawback. So can you talk us through what might happen to some of these groups? Obviously, some are probably going to lose money, have to pay back creditors, but some could possibly mount a defense to minimize the damage to their nonprofit. So can you talk to us about the range of outcomes?
Sure. And so it is going to be driven by a handful of external factors. One, actually the actual timeline of these contributions, right? Because most clawbacks, as outlined earlier, do tend to happen during that last 90 to 100-day window. So the actual timing of these contributions is going to matter. Two, the actual dollar amount of these contributions, right? So the bigger the actual funds that had been contributed, then the higher the profile of these NFPs are going to be. And then three, sort of where these institutions, where these nonprofits are actually headquartered, and how easy it is to get a handle on their founders, on their operations. Because it's also worth pointing out that there have been quite a few nonprofits that have come out saying that, yes, our institution has gotten money from FTX, but basically they aren't willing to comment or add any extra context on the source or on how those funds have been used. And it's also worth to highlight here that as there are more allegations coming out as to how FTX actually was operated, that it could be argued, right, that these contributions were actually made using customer funds, all of which could then further complicate this whole outcome.
Yeah, it just sounds like such a mess. What's going to be the fallout for cryptocurrency donations? What's going to be the fallout for some of these nonprofits who probably undoubtedly were like, oh, it's a windfall, this is great, but now I imagine they're going to be like, oh, I don't want any part of this.
Absolutely. And so there has been sort of this pushback anyway against being nonprofits taking cryptocurrency contributions as crypto. And so probably the impact right now is going to be that if you are a nonprofit and you are approached by a crypto institution trying to donate funds, you are probably going to ask that institution to, rather than actually donating tokens, to rather convert those tokens into dollars and to just make those contributions that way. But ultimately, the whole collapse of FTX is going to give crypto a massive black eye going forward in terms of how it's perceived and viewed both on Wall Street and in the overall nonprofit community. So it is going to be a uphill battle overall.
And Sean, I jotted down a couple of notes as you were talking. You mentioned internal records, internal controls, all of these things that are absent when you look at finance. And John was saying the emperor without any clothes. And he also mentioned another word which I imagine folks in the crypto world don't like, which is regulations. But where do you see this going in terms of putting in some of these kind of regulations that would perhaps stop this in the future?
Sure. So I'm a CPA by education and expertise, and so I'm always a big fan of reasonable, consistent, and transparent regulation. And as has been proven in 2022 at Celsius, Terraform Labs, FTX, and the ongoing questions on how certain privately issued stablecoins are backed, it really does come back to quite often how the underlying financial statements are actually managed, right? How are they created? How are those external statements controlled? Then how is that data actually communicated out to the marketplace? So I do think regulation is coming, but I do think there is going to be just a danger of having regulation be too harsh as a result of FTX. But overall, I do think that healthy regulation that is transparent and comparable will help the industry grow and develop and actually become more mainstream going forward.
Sean, thanks for breaking it all down for us. Really appreciate it.